Afternoon, everyone. It's now 3 o'clock, and we're ready to begin our session today. Today, we're going to talk about the 7 types of difficult students and how to love them anyway. I know this is a challenge for many of us because, yes, uh, at one point or another, we will have one of these 7 difficult students. I have given seminars to more than 100,000 teachers all over the Philippines, in Asia, in the United States, talking about character formation, championing character formation, because that is where the challenge is. Always tell teachers, students may not be easy to manage, to discipline, to handle, but we've got to do it out of love. We've got to do our work because we love the children, because we love the profession. Otherwise, a person who is incapable of loving, a teacher who is incapable of loving students who are challenging, difficult, problematic, even, will have a hard time becoming a great educator. You can be a good teacher, you can be stern, terror, scary teacher, but to be a great teacher, a lot of love is needed. So my subtitle for our session today is like this is going to be a practical and compassionate guide for tired but hopeful educators. This series in September, I personally designed um, with teachers who are already beginning to get tired and exhausted in mind. Because traditionally, in my 34 years as an educator, I would see that it's around this time, second, third month of the school year, 2 or 3 months from the opening, when it becomes tedious, especially for a teacher who has been giving himself or herself generously from the very beginning. And I know many of you are like that. You started the school year with all eagerness, with a idea in mind that I am not just here to cover the curriculum, I am here to make an impact in the lives of my students. I am not just teaching subjects, I am teaching children. And this is what I always tell teachers to have as an objective. Our goal is not just to be able to say at the end of the school year, I'm such a good teacher, I finished the textbook. I am such a good teacher, I've covered the curriculum. I'm such a good teacher, I was able to reach the last chapter of the coverage. Okay, that's essential, that's important, that's necessary, but that is not the only goal or objective of a good educator. A good teacher would say at the end of the school year, at the end of the year, he or she will say, I'm such a good teacher, I made a difference in the lives of my students. I'm such a good teacher, I made an impact in the lives of my students. And even better, to be able to say, I'm such a good teacher because my students are better human beings after teaching them math for the year, social studies for the year, English for the year, history for the year. But more importantly, I taught them to be good men and women. That is a great educator. That is a hopeful educator. And I know many of you decided precisely to become a teacher because you thought you could make a difference in the lives of people. Maybe that's the reason why many of you continue to be in the teaching profession, even if, let's be very clear about it, it's not the best paying job. available. It's not a job that will make you filthy rich, but many of us choose to remain teaching in the teaching profession because we are not just after unemployment. We are not just here to have a job. We are here for a mission. We have a sense of mission that our objective is not just to see our students go on to be honor students, geniuses in math, geniuses in English, science, and whatever subject you're teaching, but that we will see them all go on to become men and really session include identifying the 7 common types of difficult students. And I'm sure many of you can relate, especially after having seen your students being with them for the last 2 or 3 months. And then I hope you will be able to understand better the emotional and psychological roots of each behavior. And then I hope to be able to share with you concrete classroom strategies that you can use in order to respond with empathy, but at the same time, firmness. And then lastly, to create a concrete plan to support at least one difficult student in class. Chances are you will not just have one of the 7 that we're going to describe. Maybe you already have seen 2, 3, or 4 of them inside your classroom. Okay, a quick poll, and I hope you can type in the chat box what kind of student behavior frustrates you the most. Okay, share with us in the chat box. Um, Chances are you will realize, in fact, that your experience with one student or another is not, after all, unique. Most likely, other teachers also encounter them in their own schools, in their own classrooms. What student behavior frustrates you the most? But I'll share with you my biggest frustrations, or rather, the kind of student behaviors that frustrate me the most. There are students who do not follow instructions. You tell them to bring out a paper, and they will ask, bring out a paper, sir. You will tell them, bring out 1/2 sheet of paper, and they will still ask, 1/2 sheet of paper, sir. You just said it, and then they will have to repeat it. Or you tell them to sit down, but they don't sit down. Or sometimes you tell a student to sit up straight, and you have to repeat it 10 times because they tend to slouch or they talk out of turns. You can also have students who are like that, or students who are so grade conscious. So you can have very varied, different experiences and different kinds of student behaviors that you have seen inside the classroom. Okay, but one of the things we need to keep in mind is, many of the students come inside our classroom and they come with an unlit candle, unlit candle, and they come from the dark. A dark home, a dark house, a house where the mother is absentee, the father abandoned them. I mean, we have more and more cases like this of students coming inside our classroom and they come from a unhappy, well, dark background, that they are bullied, that they are teased by their classmates. They feel the parents don't understand them. They don't have friends who are real friends. And so you have students, kids coming inside our classroom with an unlit candle, and they're actually telling me, "Sir, please light my candle. I don't want to be in the dark anymore." And we are the ones who are supposed to help them find light, have light. Every kid is one caring adult away from being a success story. Let that inspire us. We may be the teacher this student or that other student has been looking for, to motivate them, to push them, to inspire them. And I tell you, many of the students come inside our classroom and they are not concerned about the subject matter. They have many other big concerns in their mind: relationships, problems at home, difficulties, addiction, addiction to gadget, to video games, to social media, grappling with these realities now that we see in this generation of young people, realities that did not exist 10, 20 years ago. I mean, this addiction to TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, this addiction to Spotify, Netflix, K-dramas, teleseries, movies, YouTube, um, these things did not exist 15, 20 years ago. Now, it is the most expected. I mean, chances are most students today are into video games, social media, cell phone addiction, tablet, gadget, technocentric lifestyle, which is also, by the way, is true of many cases of depression among teens, among kids. You know, last month I was invited to give a seminar there in um, Calamba because two grade six students committed suicide. And they said, no, this cannot continue. We have to have a seminar on mental health and taking care of the mental health of our students. And so they invited me, and I went there to give a talk to all the principals of the private schools on, well, taking care of the mental health of our students. And at the root of that is, again, the first thing I mentioned in today's session. We have to love our students. We have to care enough for them that we are more concerned that they grow up to be successful, good, and not just covering the curriculum, and not just obsessed about finishing the textbook, and not just obsessed about being able to submit our grades on time. I mean, I've met some teachers who are so more concerned about being able to comply with the school principals' requirements, submission of grades, submission of unit plans, submission of uh, and because they get so stressed just attending to these requirements and to these submissions that they have to make, they tend to forget that, wait a minute, I am here to take care of children, to take care of human beings. My goal is to see young people go on to be successful in life, not just to pass a test, not just to pass a subject, and not just to pass a year. Sure, all those things will follow if we first start with, I will care, I will love my students, and I am responsible for them. So, here is a very important idea to keep in mind. There are difficult students, sure. There are challenging students. There are those that give us headaches. that make our life difficult. But at the root of difficult behavior of students, whatever it is failure in understanding what they are trying to communicate to us. When you look at externals, the actions they take, noise, catching your attention, talking out of turns, tapping their ball pens, sitting back, all those actions that we see they do, or even the body language. Sometimes when you tell a student, John, sit down, and then John will look at you like so angry. Why are you telling me to sit down? There are many others here who are also standing up and are also noisy. Why are you picking on me? That's the body language that we read, no? And when we see that, teachers who are impatient, who do not have the patience, who do not know how to communicate properly, will get mad and will tell the students, are you trying to challenge my authority? Uh, and there's the beginning of the conflict, and the student becomes a problem student for us, or from our point of view. But at the um, what we are seeing are just the externals. But that body language, the action that the student is taking, what we don't see is the underlying, what is this guy thinking? What is he feeling? What are his values? What are his beliefs? And maybe what is the past experience of this student? Maybe he's acting like that because he is beaten up at home, being that his father is bitter, and he would hurt, inflict pain on the son. And so, what we are seeing, the externals that we are seeing inside the classroom, um, all these things do not show. We will not know about his past experience, his fears, his beliefs, his real feelings, his thoughts, unless we talk to the person, unless we communicate. So that's why many times conflict inside the classroom between the teacher and the student um, can be traced back to lack of communication or failure to communicate. We have to go to the common, rather, we have to go to the root causes. Why is this guy like this? Why does he behave like this? Why is he like KSP, kulang sa pansin, trying to catch attention all the time? Why is he difficult um, to get him to follow direction? Okay, many times the behavior of the students, what we see they do inside the classroom, they have causes. There are reasons why they behave in a certain way. One common root cause is unmet needs. For example, everybody has this uh, innate desire to be accepted, to be made part of a group, to belong. If a student, for example, has problems with belonging at home, maybe because his siblings fight him all the time, bully him, the parents beat him up, they shout and scream at him, then there is an unmet need of belonging. And that person is going to try to do everything he can to meet that need, that unmet need of belonging. And so, many cases, for example, of students who are victims of bullying. There's an unmet need there, the need to be treated with kindness, the need to be respected. That unmet need now will show in problematic ways. Another possible common root cause of misbehavior, or externally, we will describe it as lack of discipline in a student, is if the person has suffered a trauma or insecurity. That insecurity, for example, of not having friends. And so they try to catch attention of people, to feel, to try to make the attention of other people center on them. It's because of that insecurity, or maybe the trauma that they are victims of bullying, and it will show in the way they behave. Or here's another one, a common root cause of misbehavior or lack of discipline, seemingly lack of discipline inside the classroom. Attention seeking, power struggles, or simply sheer boredom. These are all um, root causes of why, therefore, we start seeing problematic behavior, and we start labeling that student as a problematic student, as a as the title of our session says, difficult students. Now, please keep in mind, um, what we see externally of them is not everything. We need to go deeper. We need to talk, communicate, and find out more. Why do you do this? Why do you try to always attract attention? Why do you not follow instructions, etc.? So we have to know these seven the most common types of problematic students or difficult students. We have to know them so that we know how to deal with them and use some strategies to be able to, well, not just control, but manage them. For each type, we're going to give it a name and the trait, what they usually externally show. And then I'm going to discuss really what may really be going on in their mind, in their feelings. And then I'm going to share with you certain things that you should not do as far as this difficult student is concerned. And then we will talk about what might work, possible strategies that you can try to use in disciplining or in managing this kind of difficult students, with some suggested phrases and scripts that you can even follow. Let's go to the very first one, the clown. Okay. Have you had a student like this who seemed to be the class clown, constantly joking, disrupting your lessons, and unfortunately, many times they can be very funny. They make the class laugh, but unfortunately, again, many times at the wrong time, because they don't choose the time when they're going to crack jokes, when they're going to try to be funny. But at the root of that is really a certain insecurity, a need for attention. This is really what we will call KSP, kulang sa pansin. Very closely related, attention deficit. They don't um usually get that attention elsewhere, like at home, from their parents, because maybe they're too busy. They don't have the time, or worse, in many cases in Philippine setting, one of the parents is an OFW working abroad. And for all intents and purposes, therefore, is absentee, physically absent. Sure, we now have FaceTime, Zoom, Google Meet. You can have Facebook Messenger video calls, Viber calls, but it's still different if the parent, the parents, both mother and father, are really there. Because then a, a kid today whose parent is working abroad, you cannot blame him or her for thinking that my dad chose to work abroad, leaving me behind, maybe because he doesn't want to be with us. Maybe because work for him is more important. The dollars he's able to send back home are more important for him than me. The That's not true, of course. Most of the OFWs I know went abroad because they want a better life for their family. They want a better life for their children. But you cannot blame a kid who is still immature and incapable of these complicated reasonings to be able to see very clearly, no, no, my parents are not here because they really love me, because they are really working hard for me. That takes maturity. Not all kids are capable of arriving at such a conclusion. Therefore, you have a kid who may be insecure and needing attention. Okay, what will help? Pre-planned humor outlet or private affirmation. You know, this is very important. The clown may actually lack confidence in academics for fear of being labeled as dumb, poor, slow. And so they resort to jokes. And when they joke, the whole class laughs. They get the attention. Their insecurity is masked. So, what will help? While their humor may lighten the room, it can also delay learning if left unchecked. So the best approach is to affirm their wit in structured ways. For example, you will tell the class, okay, okay, class, uh, we will have last 2 minutes later for those who want to give us a wholesome joke. But for now, I need your full attention in this lesson. Okay? Don't distract your classmates until we have those last 2 minutes when I'm going to open the floor for whoever has a joke to share with the class. You know, that kind of pre-planned humor outlet. Give them a chance to crack their jokes, to tell their jokes, but not to intrude into academic time, into the lesson time. And so this clown can look forward to those 2 minutes that you're going to open the floor later on. Um, that's a sample strategy. You know, you give them a 2 minute spotlight moments. Then you have all the attention you want, but not to intrude into academic time. But what we will have to avoid, what the teacher should not say is, uh, when a class clown like that starts making jokes and the teacher will feel offended, upset, angry, and send him out of the classroom for disrupting the class. But wait, laughter is also okay. I mean, laughter that intrudes into the academics, okay, that can be avoided. But a class laughing together may not necessarily be a bad thing. And unfortunately, the class clown, many times, as I said, can be funny. They can actually come up with a quick witted remarks that that can make the class laugh. So uh, give them that 2 minute spotlight uh, that you will schedule, or that you're going to tell the class, okay, next meeting we will start with 2 minutes when I'm going to open the floor for whoever wants to share a joke. But for now, let's all pay attention and focus on the lesson that we are taking up. Um, there, that's it's like putting it as part of the and not more than 2 minutes. Only that segment that you're going to give to the to that clown and effectively to the class, because really you can have students there who may be laughing, but actually they do not like the disruption that takes place. Let's go to another kind of difficult student, the angry volcano. You've had this kind of student, um, short-tempered, explosive, confrontational, even using aggressive language. You know, when you have a student like that, poor guy, poor kid, chances are at the root of that may be an unprocessed anger, trauma even, or maybe lack of emotional vocabulary. I know of a case of a student who was difficult to handle. The teachers had a very tough time handling him, short-tempered, easily getting angry, gets into fights with classmates, until one teacher talked to him and tried to process, what's happening? And the teacher found out that this student is abused at home. I mean, yes, sexually abused at home. And so grappling with unprocessed anger, anger at the world. But if the source of your suffering is in the house, which is where he is supposed to be learning love, acceptance, family. I mean, what we understand a family to be a haven of love, and he is not seeing it there, where will he now vent his anger? Well, as it turned out, all those explosions, aggressive behaviors he was showing in school are all because of nobody processed with him. All those angers that he was just keeping to himself. And so the next time you have a student like this, let us not be very quick to judge, because nobody, no person really would be would go to the classroom thinking, how can I make the life of other people miserable? I mean, no good human being, no right-minded person will really think that way. Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, how can I make the life of other people today miserable? There's usually something behind it. And the only way we can find out is communicating. So then, what will help? In the first place, we are the adults. And therefore, we are expected to model calmness, kindness, goodness. So, in the first place, students should see. our calm body language, that we don't meet fire with fire, that we also shout, scream, and yell at the student for being an angry person. What else can help? Well, we can give delayed consequences, like telling the person, we will talk later. I have to talk to you after the class, but not to immediately inflict punishment there and then, because that's the temptation we can have. As soon as we see a student with a violent behavior, we can immediately shout, scream, and yell, send him out of the classroom, send him to the principal's office, or worse, we shout something like, you're going to be detained. I will detain you. I will suspend you. I will work on getting, the feeling that the harsher our punishment at that moment, the more behaved that person will become. No, the person is just going to be full of resentments. Okay? And this is the reason why I have to go back again to the first point I mentioned. This needs a lot of patience. Patience that is rooted in love, in care, in concern. It is very tough because this is one of the hardest students to manage. But we have to do our best to be able to treat a person like this with a lot of understanding, with a lot of care, with a lot of love. Again, that quotation we saw earlier, an angry person, an angry student may really just be looking for someone to hear or to listen to him or to hear him out and to wake him up from that. Well, it's such a bad place, situation, state, condition that he is in. What looks like aggression may actually be a show of grief or pain. We don't know what the person is going through. Maybe he is grappling with a big problem at home. There's death in the family, and he has no way of letting other people know. So it shows in the way he carries himself, in the way he reacts to situation. So the point here, the key is not to take the behavior personally. That student is not challenging your authority. That student is not disrespecting you. That's just his reaction to the situation he finds himself in. To offer a calm, predictable response. And then later on, afterwards, to make the person reflect. Make him do a journal. Make him do a drawing that can help the student express his feelings safely. Let's go to another type of difficult student, the silent wall. You've had students like this who are withdrawn, they don't participate, they're resistant. When you talk to them, you only get one word answers or the shrug of the shoulders or simply silence, the silent wall. Many times a student in this situation, student like this, may actually be grappling with the fear of failure. Um, or maybe that's his upbringing. He didn't learn confidence. Or maybe he had bad experience in the past of being shamed, being put to shame, being laughed at, being put down. Poor guy. And his reaction is to clum. up to keep quiet, not to talk. And here is a person who is somebody's son, daughter, who is somebody's brother, sister. He has a family, but comes to school and doesn't know how to open up, afraid that he might make mistakes. And so, no talk, no mistake. So, what will help? Safe routines, non-verbal choices, and maybe, yeah, assigning peer buddies. I know many of the many schools do this, no? Especially new students being assigned a classmate who will serve as his or her buddy, someone that the person can run to for anything, to ask for advice, to ask for help, to ask questions about one teacher or another, or even to ask for help in academics. This may help. Um, if the student resists engagement, it's not necessarily because they don't care, especially, di ba, when you see a student answering with a shrug of the shoulder, some teachers read that as, no, the student couldn't care less. No, um, many times it may be because they really feel overwhelmed. You will see this especially in new students, transferees who left all their friends from another school, and then they come to a school where everybody knows everyone already except he or she, because new student, transferee, no friends yet, while everybody is um, friends with each other already. It can get overwhelming, and the person is simply full of anxiety, or the feeling of they don't belong. Again, we go back to that idea I mentioned earlier, that everybody has that innate desire to be accepted, to belong. And if you don't get that, then complications happen. You can have all these difficult behaviors showing up. Silence becomes their defense mechanism. So, how do we help these people? Gentle routines, private check ins, non-verbal tasks, like, the voting with fingers or using response cards. Those that will not um, necessitate having to speak, because they may be grappling with all these anxieties, the fear of making mistakes and then being laughed at because of the mistake that they do. And then when you are able to get them to participate, even the smallest attempts of this student to participate, to take part, to get involved, celebrate those. Celebrate those. Okay? So, person, and besides, in my 34 years inside the classroom, I have seen students who may be very quiet, silent, not non-participative, but it's a matter of time. A matter of time when they bloom. I mean, there are people who really are, as what we would call them, late bloomer. They just need more time than the others. They are not as outgoing, as gregarious, as bubbly as their other classmates, but maybe it's just matter of time. Maybe it's just a matter of one teacher believing in him or her, and then he comes out of his shell. And that's one of the most fascinating and rewarding experiences I've ever had of seeing a student who started out as loner, reserved, silent, non-participative, and then later on um, blooming to become a leader, a class leader. Here's another difficult student, the know-it-all. I'm sure you've come across a student like this who interrupts, corrects teachers, dominates class, but they're intelligent. I mean, they know a lot. That's why they tend to interrupt, they tend to correct the teacher, they tend to dominate. At the root of that may be control issues or performance-based worth. Their idea of worth is performance, output, loudness of voice, amount of words they're able to contribute or to say. Effectively, they're constantly seeking the spotlight. But that confidence they have may actually be masking a deep insecurity or a certain fear of becoming irrelevant. That's why they don't want to become irrelevant. They want to always be in the spotlight. They want to always be hugging the limelight. Well, rather than suppressing their input, channel it. Call on them to summarize key points, to lead review sessions, or assign them to mentor a struggling student, a struggling classmate, someone who may be having difficulties. Give them responsibilities. That is channeling their insecurity. And when you give them these assignments, oh, they feel relevant, they feel useful. They don't need to try to catch attention. They don't need to hug the limelight all the time because you have given them, you have channeled their that desire to be relevant to a useful um, output or useful task. So this is a phrase that we can use. I can see you're really engaged. Let's use that. Let's put that to good use. Let's make that beneficial for especially those classmates of yours who need help. Let's go to another type of difficult student, the entitled prince or princess. Um, how do we call this in this generation now? Entitlement. That's, in fact, one of the things that experts say, researchers say, is very um, common among these young people today. That sense of entitlement. Their traits will include being demanding, expecting exceptions, and they're never at fault. They are never at fault. If the group in the in a group project and they're part of that group, if the group does not perform well, they always have other people to blame, but never themselves. So at the root of this is overindulgence, inflated self-view, or anxious underneath. Again, uh, what the iceberg that I showed earlier, all the externals are clear, but what we don't see are those things that really happen beneath the feelings, the traumas, the experiences, the challenges they may be facing at home or elsewhere. So, this type expects special treatment and they react strongly when you tell them no. They may have grown up with excessive praise or little accountability. It's very common of this generation. Some people say it's because of poor parenting. It's rooted in how they are dealt with at home, because you can have parents like that who try to shield their kids from any difficulties, from any negativity or negative experiences. And so they come to school and they don't know how to cope with failure. They don't know how to cope with um, not being the center of attention. So underneath is often a child unsure how to handle fairness or boundaries. For this, consistency is key. Don't get pulled into arguments. No point in arguing with kids like this. Calmly explain that privileges are earned, not owed. That the world does not owe them the entitlement. And the best way to address this is to use policies, class rules, class procedures as your shields. Like, to be able to say a kid like this, no, this is how we do things here. But we have to be very patient with kids like this. We have to be able to tell a kid like this that, fair doesn't mean equal. Fair means everyone gets what they need. I mean, just as um, respect is important, responsibility is equally important. Just as freedom is important, sense of responsibility is equally important. We go to the next one, the attention leech. A student like this is like a sponge for approval. Sip, sip. In Tagalog, that's what we call this kind of person. Always constantly needing approval. And in the process, distracts the peers, overly dependent. At the root of this really is the person who has low self-worth and maybe um, an unmet validation. I've seen this happen, especially when you have parents who are impossible to please, quote unquote. I remember a student who, when he goes home with a test paper with a grade of 96, 97, 98, the parents will ask, "Oh, why only 98? Why didn't you get 100?" And that made the student resentful, resentful of the parents. And at the same time, always with that consciousness of, I have to get perfect. That's the only way I can please my parents. And so they become like that. Well, in the first place, low self-worth that really is not even true. I mean, 96, 97, that's good. That's still far better than what many of his classmates would get, but that kind of low self-worth starts um, creating this wrong behavior. What helps? Well, reschedule check-ins, raise independence. Because a student like this is grappling with poor self-image or lack attention at home or elsewhere. Often, um, for us teachers, the temptation is to ignore them, no? Um, but then the student may interpret this, wrongly interpret this as rejection, that you are rejecting them. So, having these pre-scheduled check-ins, that every so often you can give assurance to the person that you're okay, you're doing okay, just keep up the good work, but not in front of the class, but individually, precisely because if we do it in front of the class, then that is just going to foster even more that desire for attention. Encourage self monitoring and delayed help seeking. So a person like this is not impossible. I mean, at least this person, you can say, is doing well. The only thing that is missing maybe is an assurance, a validation. So, good strategy is catching them being brave moments. And then the last, the lost wanderer, always off task, forgetful, disengaged, not connected, wandering minds or off task behavior, many times mask learning struggles. I I know you also have to be dealing with more and more cases of students with ADHD, right? Chronic disengagement. You will have to call their attention very frequently. At the root of this may be learning difficulties. Maybe the student really is having a tough time. That the student has a tough time understanding the lesson, the material, or maybe to even having a tough time finding the lesson relevant, useful, necessary. There may be real physical defect that only experts, specialists can address. And for this, we will need the help of, well, we will need the collaboration of the parents because it's the parents who will have to be the ones now working on getting their kid, their son, their daughter diagnosed. But meanwhile, inside the classroom, we do all we can to get them to pay attention using visuals, structures, partner reminders, making them do partner works, teamworks, projects, group projects that will get them engaged because it will be easier for them to deal with their peers, their classmates. We can make use of all these available materials now that we have. We know far more than the previous generations about ADHD, about learning these difficulties, dysfunctions, even in their skills, their abilities. We can make use of them. Build routines around transitions and use timers and visual prompts. They need support, but also structure that they can rely on. Okay, all these point out to us that we have to teach from love, not just control. I know it is more challenging than ever. I mean, let's face it, teaching today has become far more challenging than it ever has been in the past, especially coming from the pandemic. And then the kids came back with all sorts of dysfunctions. I mean, there were many complications that happened. Many kids didn't know anymore how to deal with other children when they came back to the classroom after 2, 3 years of online learning. And now we are still dealing with all these transitions. That's why if a teacher is incapable of doing the teaching, with love, if a teacher is incapable of seeing beyond the externals and trying to go to the what is underneath, the underlying causes and all these, it's not very easy. It's going to be very difficult. Okay, some very important ideas as we end this session. Firmness with kindness, the role of secure attachment. Many times, all you need is one secure attachment, a relationship. It may be the parents, and sometimes it can be the teacher. It can be you. You may be the difference that student, that difficult student has been looking for. Winning a power struggle is not the goal. Winning over the clown, winning over the attention leech, winning, no, it's not about the struggling for power and at the end being able to say, I won over this difficult student. It is all about, I care enough for these kids. I cannot give up on them. They count more on me. They need me now more than ever. They need me more than the others need me. These difficult students may actually be just looking for, waiting for the hero that they need in their life. And then we set boundaries because that too is love. Okay, I would like to end with a few quotations. When you love the unlovable, you teach a child they are worth loving. 5 inspiring quotations. You're not failing, you're planting seeds. It's just that some take longer to bloom. One day, that difficult student will remember your kindness as their turning point. And I've experienced this, and many of you for sure have experienced it. Students that are easy to give up on, but eventually later on, they become very successful and they want to thank you. They will tell you, I am who I am because of you. It's okay to be exhausted. Holiness and heroism often looks like staying one more day. These difficult students can make life difficult, sure, but that is our sanctification. That is where we teachers can become holy and heroic. You don't need to fix everything. You just need to be someone safe, consistent, and kind. And finally, you may not be able to save them all, but you can save that moment. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today in this session on the 7 types of difficult students and how to love them anyway. In a while, you're going to see flashed on screen the QR code to claim your certificate. And then also in the chat box, you're going to see the link that you can click to claim your certificate. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope to see you in our other future sessions. Take care and good luck in your adventure of making a difference in the lives of your students. Bye, everyone.